friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing another stitch sampler. This one is for the snuggle stitch. If you've not heard of that one, neither had I before I tested this out, but I have come to really enjoy it, and I think that you will too. It's worked with double crochets and chain stitches, and it creates this very interesting woven texture without adding too much weight. Kind of like how a front post double crochet, back post double crochet weave looks, but again, without too much thickness to the fabric. So if you want to learn how to do the snuggle stitch and make a sampler washcloth with me, keep watching. For this project, you're going to need some yarn. I have two different colors in Bernat Handicrafter cotton. This stitch lends itself so well to switching colors each row. It'll really showcase the cool texture. You'll also need a crochet hook. I'll be using a 4mm hook today. You'll also need some scissors to cut the yarn, as well as a yarn needle to weave in your ends. So gather your supplies and let's jump in. We're going to begin with a slip knot. From here, chain 24. 1, 2, 3, 23, and 24. For the snuggle stitch, it's divisible in 4 stitches because it's a 2 double crochet, 2 chain stitch repeat, which is 4 stitches. So you need to make however many stitches you want divisible by 4. Whatever number you come up with, add 4 to that for your starting chain. So I'm doing a 20 stitch row, but I have an additional 4 stitches at the beginning of the row. Let me show you why. We're going to double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll put 1 double crochet in that stitch. Now, the chain 3 at the edge of the row, that represents 1 double crochet stitch, and then we have our 2nd double crochet stitch next to it. From here, we're going to chain 2. Chain 1 and chain 2. Then we'll skip the next 2 chain stitches, skip this one, skip this one. Into the following chain stitch, we'll do a double crochet. Then in the next chain stitch, we'll do another double crochet. And then we'll chain 2, chain 1, and chain 2. And then we'll skip the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2. And then in the following 2 stitches, we'll do a double crochet in each stitch. There's 1, and there's 2. And then chain 2, chain 1, and chain 2. Then we'll skip 2, 1 and 2, and then double crochet into the next 2 stitches. You can see already the nice sort of pattern we're creating by skipping 2 stitches and putting that chain 2 in. We're creating a space. In the next row, you'll see how we turn that into our snuggle stitch. Here I am at the end of my row. I did 2 double crochets, I did a chain 2, and then there's skip 1, skip 2, and you'll see I have 2 chains left in the row, which is perfect because that leaves us with 2 double crochets at the edge of the row. So by doing our stitches divisible by 4, and then adding the chain 4 at the end of that, we end up with 2 at the beginning and 2 at the end of each row. So here is our first row for the snuggle stitch. To move into the 2nd row, I am going to change yarn colors here. So to do that, I will start my double crochet, my last one of the row, yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then I'm going to drop that tail and I'm going to bring in my new yarn for the last stitch or the last loop of the stitch. So I will wrap the yarn around and pull the new yarn through. Then I'll drop the tail of the new yarn and I will do a chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn with the new yarn. And here we are. Now this chain 2 is representing a double crochet. We're going to be doing another chain 2. So this, at the end of the row, it's actually a chain of 4. Chain 1, chain 2. The first chain 2 represents a double crochet, and the 2nd chain 2 represents the chain 2 between the double crochet stitches. When it's pulled, it will be upright for the first 2 chains, sideways for the second 2 chains. Now we're going to do 2 double crochets, but where we do them is what's interesting. So the 2 chain stitches we created, or the 2 chain stitches we skipped rather, are going to be where we put our double crochets. So I'm going to do a yarn over, insert the hook into that chain stitch that we skipped, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops to create a double crochet. And then again, in the next chain stitch that we skipped, another double crochet, just like that. And then we'll chain 2. The 2 that we're skipping are the double crochets. And then the next 2 stitches we're working into are the chain stitches that we skipped rather, at the beginning of the work. The first row in this stitch is a little bit finicky, but it does get easier as we move forward. So there's my first double crochets again, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet into the previous chain 2. There's 1, and there's 2. Chain 1 and chain 2, and then double crochet into those chain 2 space. And now we need to put a double crochet at the end of the row. So we did our last 2 double crochets. We're not going to do a chain 2 here, but we are going to put our last stitch into this space. This is a little bit complicated or confusing, I suppose, because it means that there's going to be 1 stitch here. But we are going to change the color at this point in order to keep a continuity. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to start by introducing a new color right here. So I'm going to introduce this stripy color. I'm going to drop the tail of this blue, and I'm going to have this stripy color for our yarn over. So yarn over with the new color, insert it into the last stitch of the row, which is actually a space between a chain 3 that we turned the row with, and then our first double crochet. And then I'm going to complete the double crochet with the new yarn. So now there's no space between these 2 double crochets and this one. And then I'm going to chain 2, chain 1 and chain 2, and I'm going to turn the work. Now, the reason we changed the color at this point is because we are going to do our first double crochet stitch in this first double crochet stitch at the end here. So this is 1 double crochet. We're visually tricking our row so that when we do our second double crochet right here, it looks like we've put 2 stitches in, when in fact we've only really put the 1 in, because our chain 2 and the end of the last row blends it. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So now we have the block here, and then we can do a chain 2 again, chain 1 and chain 2, and then we can double crochet into the double crochets from the previous row. We're working in the row 2 rows ago. That sounds very complicated, but we're basically not working in last row, we're working in the row before that. So by putting that color change on the last stitch, we end up with 2 stitches right next to each other, even though really we only did the 1 double crochet there. See what I mean? Now the edge is nice and straight. And then I did 2 double crochets in the double crochet stitches, then chain of 2, and then 2 double crochets in the double crochet stitches from 2 rows ago. And we'll repeat that all the way across for row number 3. Here I am coming up to the end of row number 3, and at the end of row number 3 we've got 2 double crochets, a chain 2, we'll skip the double crochets, and then we'll double crochet into the double crochet stitches from the row prior for our last 2 stitches of the row. So for row number 3, we're finishing with just 2 double crochets at the edge of the row. Row number 2, if you'll recall, we had to do 3 double crochets at the end of the row. We are going to be switching colors at this point though, so I started my double crochet stitch, yarn over, insert the hook into our last stitch of the row, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then we're going to switch back to the gray. And we'll switch back by pulling through the last 2 loops with our new yarn. Just like that. From here, we're going to be doing a chain 4. Chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. The reason we're doing a chain 4 is because we finished the last row with 2 double crochets. So we need to skip these first 2 double crochets. We don't work into these ones, we skip them. And we work into the next set from the previous row. So the chain 2 of this chain 4 represents a double crochet. The second part of the chain 2 represents the skipped stitches. Okay, follow along. Then we're going to do 2 more double crochets into the previous row's double crochets. Just like that. And then chain 2. And then double crochet into the next set of double crochets. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet into the next set of double crochets, repeated all the way across. Again, we're not working into the previous row, we're working into the row before that. So we're always working 2 rows behind the row we're actually on. It feels a little complicated at the beginning, but once you get moving on it and you get a few rows in, it makes more sense. I'll meet you at the end of row number 4. Here I am coming up to the end of row number 4, and just like row number 2, we're finishing with 2 double crochets, and then we're going to do a 3rd double crochet in the chain space between the last double crochet on the previous row and the chain 2 we used to turn the row. So again, we're gonna switch colors here. We're gonna switch back to the bright blue. And we're gonna do that by dropping our yarn at this point and then starting a whole new stitch, yarn over with the new yarn. Actually, we can yarn over with the new and the old yarn just to get the old yarn to the right spot. Yarn over, insert the hook, then with just the new yarn, yarn over and pull up a loop. Oops. Yarn over and pull up a loop. And then just with the new yarn, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops to complete that stitch. And then we are gonna chain 2, chain 1, chain 2, and turn the work. And then that last double crochet that we did on the previous row actually represents our first double crochet on this next row. So we're gonna put our second double crochet into the next double crochet stitch. So we had the chain 2, we have the last double crochet here. We're gonna put our next double crochet into the stitch beside it. I hope this makes sense. Once you're doing it for a little bit, if you're doing it with different yarn, it becomes more obvious. But now it looks like you can see there's 2 stitches in one spot. 2 of the dark blue rather. And then we'll chain 2, skip 2, double crochet into the double crochet stitches from 2 rows ago. And we'll repeat that all the way across for row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do that all the way across for row number 5. Now from here on out, our odd rows are all going to be the same and our even rows are all going to be the same. So row number 5, we're going to start with a double crochet, then chain 2, skip 2, double crochet 2 times, chain 2, skip 2. And at the end of the row, we're going to be doing 2 double crochets. On row number 6, we're going to start with chain 4 because the 2 double crochets we finished row 5 with need to be skipped for the next row. So we're always going to be doing the same repeat of rows number 2 and 3 or rows number 4 and 5. It's just even rows and odd rows are all going to be the same. So if you get confused, just go back to the instructions for rows 2 and 3, and you'll find that the row repeat is the same all the way up moving forward at this point. Now I'm going to zoom through the rest of my rectangle, changing colors every row so that the texture is visible, and I will see you when we get to the end of my rectangle. I'm going to keep going at this point until my project is as long as it is tall. I want to create a square out of mine, so I'm going to keep going until it is a square, and then I will meet you back here to show you how we're going to complete the project to turn it into a washcloth. Here I am at the end of my 10th row. Look at how fun that looks when you change colors every row. So cute. It's like little checkered patterns. I love this. Okay, and now I've got the hang of it. You can see I've not cut my yarn between rows. I've just carried my yarn up with me. I started at the beginning cutting and then I decided to stop doing that and to just carry my rows up. And you can see because we did that extra double crochet on one side and on the other side the chain of 4, we end up with straight rows. So that explains that. Now let me just get through the end of this last row, putting my last couple of double crochets in, and then we're going to get started on a border for this project. We're going to first have to close up the holes in our top row, but don't worry, I'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to create a nice little border around the edge so that this works as a washcloth. So there is my last double crochet stitch. We finished with the gray, but you see when we finish this, this stitch, the top row ends up with holes in it because it's expecting us to continue for the next stitch. So we need to do something to close up these holes. I'm gonna switch colors now to the, I feel like I have more of the stripy blue than I have. How much do I have of the gray? Yeah, I think the stripy blue is gonna be my best bet. So I'm going to cut my gray yarn and my blue yarn at this point because I'm done with both of these. And then I am going to transition into my stripy blue yarn. I will finish my crochet stitch with both strands, and then I'm going to chain 1 and turn the work. And now we're going to be working another row across this way, but it's going to be a little different. Our last row here is going to be a combination of stitches. So we want our row to be the same height. As you can see, we end up with 2 different heights of stitch by doing the double crochet and the chain 2. So for this last row, what we're going to do is we're going to do single crochets. This chain 1 is our first single crochet, and then we'll do another single crochet into this double crochet stitch here. Then in the double crochets down here, we'll be doing double crochets. So we'll put 2 double crochets, 1 in each stitch. There's 1, and there's 2. And now in our next stitches, the 2 double crochets here, we're going to put single crochets. And then in the spaces here, we'll do 2 double crochets. There's 1, and there's 2. This is creating a nice straight edge for the edge of the work. No more chain stitches on this last row. And then we'll do 2 single crochets. There's 1, and there's 2, and then 2 double crochets. There's 1, and there's 2. And then 2 single crochets, 2 double crochets until we reach the corner of the work. All right, I've made it to the corner of the work. I've got 1 more double crochet stitch here, so I'm gonna put a single crochet in that last stitch. And then we've got a corner stitch here, and I'm gonna put 3 single crochets in that corner stitch. That will allow us to turn the corner. Now let me zoom you out so you can see how that last row looks now. See, it filled the gap from the chain 2 with the single crochets, and then the double crochets repeat the same pattern. Maybe I should have done this in the blue. I think I'm gonna go back and do this part in the blue. All right, I did it in blue. That made more sense. So the last row has to be done like this to close up those gaps. And now that I've finished this last row, I'm going to put my last single crochets in here. So 1 single crochet here and 1 in the corner. And now is when I'm going to change colors into the border color in order to do our edge stitch. So I'm going to break off my blue yarn here and finish my stitch with the blue stripy yarn. And then I'll start with a chain of 1, and then I'll turn the work around. Now I'm going to put a single crochet into the same stitch that the chain 1 just came out of. And then I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across for this first row of the edge stitch. So I'm not going to be doing any variations in stitches now, just 1 single crochet in each stitch across until we hit the corner. Here I am at the end of the row. I'm just putting my last few single crochets in, and now that I'm at a corner stitch right here, I'm going to put 3 single crochets into this corner stitch. Reason being, the first stitch is our last stitch of the row. The second single crochet I'll put into that stitch will make up our corner, and then the third single crochet in that same stitch will be our first stitch for working down the rows. But we're going to be putting 2 stitches per row all the way down. Because the tall stitch in these rows is a double crochet, we'll be putting 1 in the top of a double crochet and 1 in the body of the double crochet. Here's the next one, 1 in the top of the double crochet, and here's the body, 1 in the body of the double crochet. And we'll just be repeating that all the way down, 2 single crochets per double crochet row, geez Louise, all the way down until we hit the next corner. Just put in as many as you need to make sure that your project lays flat. For me, because we did 10 rows, that means I'm going to have 20 single crochet stitches down the side of my work. All right, I made it to the corner. Now you can see all my single crochets down the rows here. And now I'm at the corner at the bottom of the work, and I've got 1 more stitch to do here in the corner. And in that corner stitch, I'm gonna put 3 single crochets again. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And that turns us around our corner. And now I'm at the bottom chain of the work, the chain we started the work with. So in this bottom chain, I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each of the stitches all the way down. There will be a double crochet in each of those stitches on the other side of the chain. So we're just picking up the opposite side of the bottom of the chain and doing a single crochet 1 time in each chain stitch all the way to the next corner. So I'll zoom through this part and I'll meet you at the corner. All right, I made it across the bottom of my work to my third corner here. These are the tails that I'm going to crochet over instead of weaving in. But I'm at my last stitch of the row. So in the last stitch, I'm going to put 3 single crochets to get us around our corner. And then again, I am going to put 2 double crochets per row up the side of the work. Because again, the double crochets are taller than the single crochets. So 2 single crochets in the first stitch of each row, 2 single crochets in the first stitch of each row, all the way up until we reach our top corner again. I've made it to my last corner. I just put a single crochet in. We started the row with a single crochet, so I'm gonna put 1 additional single crochet to finish rounding out that corner. And then I'm going to slip stitch my round together to join it and make that the final corner. Now I'm gonna trim my yarn here, and then I'll weave in that end. And guess what? Ta-da! Our little sampler is finished and it came out so cool. Gosh, I really like this stitch. I think this came out really fun. The texture looks so cool. Here's how it looks when it's on a variegated yarn. You can still see those sort of check-marked sort of thing, the checker pattern. Again, it's kind of giving like a houndstooth vibe with the variegated yarn. Still really cool, but when you switch up the yarn every row, you end up with this really fun sort of blocks of color. It's almost like a gingham with these colors that I chose, but it's 3 different colors swapped each row. How fun is that? Anyway, here is our Snuggle Stitch sampler. Try and say that 10 times fast. But I am going to be having this as a washcloth in my washcloth pile, which is starting to grow, honestly, since we started the stitch swatch tutorials. So check out those other ones. I'll link them in the corner and down below. But I really hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you try it, because after you get a hang of how to begin and end each of the rows, it really does end up being a really fun stitch to work with. I think this would make a really great picnic blanket sort of stitch. It's not too thick, but it looks really cute and it has that sort of checkered pattern. This would also be a great stash buster. Just do one line in each of your colors that you have left over and you'll end up with this really cool sort of color blocking look. Anyways, friends, let me know what you think in the comments down below and if you're gonna try this snuggle stitch for some of your projects moving forward. Thank you so much for watching and thank you to everyone supporting the channel right now. Here is the list of channel supporters. Thank you guys so much, you're awesome. If you would like to join and support the channel as well, check out the links in the description box down below and don't forget to click the thumbs up button on the video. It really helps the channel and I would really appreciate it. Anyways, friends, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next week. Bye!